Hey everyone, Tyler Piper here with Joan Talmadge from WeNeedaVacation.com, and this is the We Need a Vacation Vacation Rental Homeowner Podcast. That's a mouthful. Say that 5 times fast. It's okay though. Today's topic, we are covering everything that is the lodging tax. I know it's your favorite subject, isn't it?
It never ends.
So it never ends. However, we're recording this now. The season has come to an end, so to speak, right? So this is kind of our first full season with the lodging tax. Was it a challenging year? What do you think?
It was challenging. It was tumultuous for some people. It was a time of frustration for others. But in the end, I know it will be okay. But the bad news is the lodging tax is here to stay, and our inquiries were and bookings were down for the summer across the Cape and Islands, about 4%.
I was going to say, what was about 4% was the actual number?
But most homeowners in the end, were able to be successful in renting out the summer season. Some had to significantly reduce their price in order to rent their homes for certain lingering weeks that weren't renting. Some say that they had weeks that never booked, despite lowering the rates. So it's clearly a time of adjustment, but I think people have to understand that the vacationers will adapt to this. 40 states.
Well, I was going to say, It will, from a vacationer standpoint, I know, us as homeowners, we look at it and say, oh my goodness, this is going to kill me, kill my business. I've been doing for so many years. What about from the vacationer point of view? Have you had any of that feedback, and will this really affect them coming to the Cape?
Well, a lot of homeowners think that it might, we'll go to Maine next year instead because it'll be cheaper. Well, maybe so. They have a lodging tax too, along with 40 other states, but or we'll go to a state where they don't have a lodging tax. But I don't think that will happen because people, if they have come to the Cape for many years and it's a family tradition, they're not suddenly going to say, I'm going to go to another state that might be cheaper or doesn't have a tax and just forego a Cape vacation.
Those people that do, it's just such a small handful of people that are going to kind of break tradition because of something like a tax, right?
What will happen probably is that they will just lower their price point, their price cap for what the home that they're looking for. And where that really impacts homeowners is with their repeat vacationers, because for some of them, they are going to have to ask for hundreds and even over $1,000 more, depending on the price of the home, to that party, that family that has been renting for several years at least, and they may lose them because they may now price themselves out of the market for that particular party, and that will happen with some people. Others, I love the house, I'm willing to do it.
Been coming here forever. This is part of the tradition for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
With that, you mentioned the price point and lowering prices. I mean, we've seen, I can't say off the top of my head what the actual percentage number of homeowners increasing their prices year over year. What should a homeowner be doing? Should we be sticking with that and say, I'm still going to increase my prices by 3% as I have every year for the last X years? Or should you say, keep that into account and lower your prices?
Yeah. Well, because we're in a transitional period here and people will eventually adapt, but it's still going to take another year or two, we don't really advise raising your prices unless you did so well this summer that it's okay. But in the past, we've seen an average rate increase of 2% a year.
Okay.
And maybe homeowners don't want to raise it at all this year. But on the other hand, we hear from some homeowners who say, well, I've offered to split the tax with
That's what I was going to ask. I mean, I've heard that too, people saying we can split the tax. I mean, should homeowners out there, should you split the tax and offer to do that, or is that kind of
Yeah.
pump the brakes.
I wouldn't. It doesn't make sense to do that, because rather than splitting it with them, lower your rate, which lowers the tax, and have them pay the whole tax. But they're paying less, and you're not splitting the higher tax at your rate.
Yeah, so it's always important to remember that it isn't a flat rate, right? It's the percentage of what you're charging for that. I mean, that's the big piece of it. Now, what about from the town's perspective? Because the towns also come into play here, right? And each town is different.
The local tax can be up to 6%, and many of the towns are now at the 6% local tax. So that's the maximum. Total would be 12.45%. And more towns are voting to increase their local tax from 4 to 6%. So, and some have already done it. Dennis did it just last week.
Okay.
And Bourne, Orleans did it last spring. So we are advising homeowners to perhaps even add to their lease a little note about a potential tax increase. If their town has a local tax of 4%, and there is a potential for an increase kind of middle of the year. I mean, it could happen anytime. So if you add that to the lease, your tenants will know that if it does increase, they would be responsible for paying for it. Now, some tenants are going to balk at that, in which case a homeowner has to be prepared to pay it themselves, because the important point here is that the tax is what the local tax would be what it is during the occupancy. So when a vacationer enters a home, that's what the tax is, not when they sign the lease.
Oh, really? Interesting. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah. So someone is going to have to pay it. When the homeowner goes to remit the taxes, the state, the Department of Revenue, knows what the local tax is, and you're going to put in the amount of taxes.
And they're going to say July 1st through the 7th or 1st through the 6th.
Yeah.
The week is at this time is that rate.
And they're going to ask for the tax that it is at the time of occupancy, not when they sign the lease, which, we argued about, but it was futile. It is what it is.
It is what it is, and that's kind of what we've seen throughout this entire situation over the course of time. Right?
Yeah, and this tax is not a new tax. It's an extension of the lodging tax that applied to hotels and motels. And I mean, you can imagine that the tax is paid when the hotel guest leaves, and they haven't signed a lease. So it's always been this way, that this is what the tax is at the time when the people occupy the hotel or now a home. So
Gotcha.
when you look at it that way, you understand it, but it's hard to accept it because of the lease.
Well, that's just it. I mean, all of this has been a tough pill to swallow. I mean, for so many years, we kind of looked at it and said, they always talk about this. It's never happened. Then we know how they kind of sprung it on us in the 11th hour, really. And then this is our first year kind of dealing with it. So it's definitely been an adjustment period for sure. But here we are. It's the beginning of November. There is some good news on the horizon, right? I mean, there's some good things to report out.
Our inquiries are up markedly over last year. And they've been rising steadily over the last, I'd say, 5-6 years. So vacationers are planning, and who knows why, but they are planning earlier than ever. And we're encouraging homeowners, don't wait, get your calendars up there, get your prices on there. You're more likely to have a successful season if you could get going early.
How nice would it be to be booked early, right? I mean, that's what everybody wants, to be done and say, March, I don't need it anymore, right?
Yeah, but those vacationers are coming. I mean,
awesome.
It will happen.
Yep, and it's an adjustment period, and we all have to adjust on both sides of it. That's great. Well, she is Joan Talmadge. I am Tyler Pyburn. Thank you so much for tuning in. You will, in fact, hear us next time.